Lyra Velnash stood before the grand mirror in her preparation chamber, studying her reflection with practiced precision. Her skin shimmered with the soft blue luminescence that marked her species as one of the galaxy's most beautiful races. Her eyes, large and expressive, shifted between shades of violet and silver depending on the light. She had been told since childhood that she was extraordinary, even among the Velnari, and she had learned to use that beauty as a weapon in diplomacy. Today marked the beginning of her most important mission. The Velnari Empire had discovered a new species called humans, and Lyra would be the first to make contact with them. She smiled at her reflection. This would be easy. It always was. She walked through the corridors of the diplomatic vessel, her flowing robes trailing behind her. The ship itself was a work of art, designed to inspire awe in any species that saw it. Every surface gleamed with technology so advanced it appeared almost magical. The Velnari had perfected space travel 50,000 years ago, and their civilization had only grown more refined since then. Taeyong, her security chief, fell into step beside her. He was tall and composed, as all Velnari were, with the same luminescent skin though his glowed more green than blue. He carried no visible weapons because Velnari technology had moved beyond such crude tools centuries ago. "The human solar system is 3 days away," Taeyong said, his voice calm and measured. "All reports suggest they are a young species, barely 10,000 years of recorded history. They have only recently begun exploring beyond their home planet." Lyra nodded. "Have they achieved faster-than-light travel?" "No. They use primitive chemical propulsion and have only reached their neighboring planets. Their technology is at least 500 years behind our current level." "Perfect," Lyra said. "They will be grateful for our guidance." In the ship's research chamber, Hana was studying human culture through the data their long-range probes had collected. She looked up as Lyra entered, her expression thoughtful. "What have you learned about them?" Lyra asked. Hana projected a holographic display showing images of Earth. Cities sprawled across the continents, lights twinkling in the darkness. "They are chaotic," Hana said. "They have over 200 different nations, each with different governments and cultures. They argue constantly. They have fought thousands of wars throughout their history." Lyra watched the images with interest. "Wars over what?" "Everything. Resources, territory, beliefs, ideologies. Sometimes it seems they fight simply because they disagree." Hana shook her head. "They are very emotional. Their art and music reflect this. Much of it celebrates struggle and conflict rather than harmony." "How primitive," Lyra said, though not unkindly. "They simply do not know better yet. We will teach them." Daewon, the technology specialist, joined them. He was younger than the others, eager and brilliant. "I have analyzed their technological development," he said. "It follows a standard pattern for pre-contact species. They have basic nuclear power, early quantum computing, and rudimentary genetic engineering. Nothing we cannot easily surpass and share with them." Lyra felt a surge of confidence. Everything was proceeding exactly as expected. She had studied the protocols for first contact with primitive species. The process was well established. She would arrive in their system, demonstrate the vast superiority of Velnari civilization, offer technological gifts and protection, and within months, they would sign the accession protocols. The humans would become a protectorate of the Velnari Empire, guided and protected until they matured as a species. She had done this twice before with other young civilizations. Both times, the new species had been overwhelmed by Velnari beauty and technology. Both times, they had eagerly accepted guidance. Lyra expected nothing different from humans. The next day, she was summoned to address the Velnari High Council. The chamber was magnificent, floating in space within a bubble of force field technology. 12 council members sat in a circle, each representing a different region of Velnari space. They were ancient, some over 1,000 years old, their wisdom beyond question. Lyra bowed respectfully before them. "Diplomat Velnash," the first speaker said, her voice resonating with telepathic undertones. "You understand the importance of this mission?" "I do, honored council," Lyra replied. Humanity represents a potential addition to our empire. They are young, but show promise. And you are confident you can guide them to accept our protection? Lyra allowed herself a small smile. I am certain of it. Within 6 months, they will sign the accession protocols. They are emotional and divided, which makes them vulnerable to unified, confident leadership. They will see in us everything they aspire to become. The council members exchanged glances, their telepathic communications buzzing beneath the surface of normal speech. Finally, the first speaker nodded. We have chosen you for your skills, Diplomat Velnash. Your beauty opens doors that others cannot access. Your telepathic abilities are among the strongest of your generation. Use these gifts wisely. Bring humanity into the fold. I will not fail you, Lyra promised. As she left the council chamber, Taeyang was waiting. You seem very confident, he observed. Should I not be? Lyra asked. We have done this countless times before. Humans are no different from any other young species. They will look at us and see perfection. They will look at themselves and see flaws. They will naturally seek our guidance. Perhaps, Taeyang said carefully. But I have read the reports on human military history. They are remarkably violent, even for a young species. We should be cautious. Lyra laughed softly. Violence is a symptom of immaturity. Once they see that there are better ways, they will abandon such crude behavior. Trust me, Taeyang, I know what I am doing. 3 days later, the ship emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system. Lyra stood on the command deck, watching as Earth grew larger in the view screen. It was a beautiful planet, blue and green and white, swirling with clouds. She could see why humans loved it. Broadcast the greeting, she ordered. The ship's communication system activated, sending out a message in 500 Earth languages simultaneously. The message was simple and elegant, explaining that the Velnari came in peace, offering friendship and knowledge to humanity. Now came the waiting. Lyra expected the humans to be overwhelmed, perhaps frightened. She prepared herself to be reassuring and gentle. The response came within an hour. A calm, professional voice speaking in English, one of Earth's major languages. Velnari vessel, this is Horizon's Gate Station. We welcome you to our solar system. Please proceed to the coordinates we are transmitting. A delegation is prepared to meet with you. Lyra blinked in surprise. That was it? No expressions of awe? No fearful questions? Just a simple, business-like welcome? She shook off the feeling of unease. Perhaps they were simply trying to appear brave and competent. That was understandable. She would soon show them that pretense was unnecessary. Set course for their station, she ordered, and prepare the diplomatic gifts. Let us show humanity what true civilization looks like. As the ship glided toward Earth, Lyra felt certain of success. She had no idea how wrong she was. The Horizon's Gate Station was larger than Lyra expected. It rotated slowly in space, generating artificial gravity through spin rather than the elegant gravity manipulation technology the Velnari used. The station was functional, even impressive for a species without faster-than-light travel, but it lacked the artistic beauty that Velnari structures possessed. Everything about it screamed purpose over form. Lyra adjusted her diplomatic robes one final time before entering the airlock. She had chosen the most stunning outfit in her collection, one that shimmered and changed colors with her movements. Taeyang, Hana, and Dai Wan accompanied her, each dressed in their finest as well. The airlock opened, and they stepped into the human station. Lyra prepared herself for gasps of wonder, for the stunned silence that usually greeted her appearance. Instead, she was met by 3 humans who looked at her with polite, professional interest. Welcome to Horizon's Gate, said a human man in a military uniform. He was older, perhaps in his mid-40s by human standards, with graying hair and sharp eyes. I am Captain Ji-Woo Park. This is Dr. Hyunwoo Lee, our chief scientist, and Ambassador Sora Kim, representing Earth's Unified Diplomatic Council. Lyra felt slightly off balance. The captain's tone was respectful but not reverent. He looked at her the same way he might look at any foreign dignitary. She smiled, activating her natural charm, the subtle telepathic influence that made others trust and admire her. "I am honored to meet you," Lyra said, her voice carrying undertones meant to soothe and attract. "I am Lyra Velnash, chief diplomat of the Velnari Empire. We have traveled far to meet humanity." Captain Jiwoo nodded. "We appreciate that. Please follow us to the conference chamber. We have much to discuss." As they walked through the station's corridors, Lyra continued to project her telepathic influence. It was second nature to her, like breathing. Every diplomat of her species learned this skill. It did not control minds, but it made others more receptive, more trusting. It had never failed her before. But Captain Jiwoo seemed completely unaffected. He walked beside her, making polite conversation about the station's construction, his manner friendly but professional. Dr. Hyun-woo asked Daewon technical questions about their ship's propulsion system. Ambassador Sora engaged Hana in a discussion about xenobiology. Everything was cordial and proper, but something felt wrong to Lyra. They were not in awe. They were not overwhelmed. They were treating her as an equal. The conference chamber was simple and functional. A large table dominated the room, with comfortable chairs arranged around it. View screens showed images of Earth and the Velnari ship. Refreshments had been prepared, including what Lyra recognized as an attempt at Velnari food based on the data their probes had sent ahead. "Please sit," Ambassador Sora said, gesturing to the chairs. "We are very excited to establish relations with your people." Lyra settled into a chair, intensifying her telepathic projection. She let her beauty shine at its fullest, her skin luminescence brightening slightly, her eyes shifting to their most captivating shade of violet. She smiled warmly. "We are pleased to have found you," Lyra said. "Humanity is young but shows great potential. The Velnari Empire would like to offer you our protection and guidance as you develop as a species." Captain Jiwoo raised an eyebrow. "Protection from what?" "The galaxy can be dangerous for young civilizations," Lyra explained patiently. "There are hostile species, cosmic hazards, and complex political situations. The Velnari have maintained peace and stability for thousands of years. We can help you avoid the mistakes that young species often make." "That is thoughtful," Ambassador Sora said, her tone carefully neutral. "However, Earth prefers to maintain its independence. We would be interested in an exchange of knowledge and culture, but not a protectorate relationship." Lyra felt a flash of confusion. She increased her telepathic influence, projecting calm authority and trustworthiness. "I understand your pride," she said gently, "but you must understand that you are not yet ready for full independence on the galactic stage. There is no shame in accepting help." "Ma'am, are you feeling all right?" Captain Jiwoo asked suddenly. "You seem to be concentrating very hard on something." Lyra froze. He had noticed. Humans were not supposed to notice telepathic influence. It was too subtle, too gentle. Most species experienced it as their own natural feelings of trust and admiration. "I am perfectly well," Lyra said, masking her surprise. She decided to change tactics. "Perhaps a demonstration of our technology would help. We have brought gifts." Daewon opened a case and removed several devices. "This is a faster-than-light communication array," he explained. "It would allow you to send messages across light years instantly, and this is a personal shield generator that can protect against most weapons." Dr. Hyun-woo examined the devices with genuine interest, but not the wonder Lyra expected. He turned the communication array over in his hands, studying it carefully. "Fascinating," he said. "This appears to use quantum entanglement for instantaneous transmission. We have theoretical models for similar technology, but we have not been able to stabilize the quantum pairs across such distances. How do you maintain coherence?" Daewon blinked in surprise. "You have theoretical models?" "Of course," Dr. Hyun-woo said. "We may not have achieved it yet, but we understand the principles. Could you explain your stabilization method?" "I am very curious." The conversation became deeply technical. Lyra watched in growing disbelief as Daewon and Dr. Hyun-woo discussed quantum physics as equals. The human was not just accepting the technology as magic. He understood it, asked intelligent questions, and even suggested improvements to the design. Ta Yang was having a similar experience with Captain Ji Woo, who wanted to know about Velnari military capabilities and defensive strategies. The captain listened carefully but did not seem intimidated. Instead, he compared Velnari tactics to human military doctrine, pointing out similarities and differences. Your approach emphasizes minimal casualties and efficient resolution, Captain Jiwoo observed. That is admirable. Human military philosophy has traditionally been more aggressive, but we are evolving. You still engage in warfare? Ta Yang asked, unable to hide his distaste. Rarely, and only when necessary, the captain replied. But we prepare for it constantly. Hope for peace, prepare for war, as the saying goes. After an hour of discussion, Lyra felt more confused than when they had started. Nothing was going according to plan. The humans were not asking to join the Velnari Empire. They were not overwhelmed by superior technology. They were negotiating as equals, proposing mutual exchanges and partnership agreements. Ambassador Sora spread several documents on the table. We have prepared a draft treaty for cultural and scientific exchange, she said. It establishes embassies on both Earth and your homeworld, creates protocols for sharing research, and sets up regular diplomatic meetings. All on equal terms, of course. Equal terms? Lyra repeated. Yes, Ambassador Sora said, meeting Lyra's eyes directly. We are different species at different stages of development, but that does not mean one should rule the other. Partnership benefits both parties more than hierarchy. Lyra felt something she rarely experienced: uncertainty. She tried one more time, focusing all her telepathic ability on projecting an aura of authority and wisdom that had convinced entire planetary governments to submit to Velnari guidance. Captain Jiwoo frowned slightly and glanced at Dr. Hyunwoo. Do you feel that? He asked quietly. Yes, the doctor replied. Some kind of pressure, not physical, more psychological. They could feel it. They could resist it. They could even identify it. Lyra released her telepathic projection and sat back in her chair, stunned. For the first time in her diplomatic career, her greatest tools were useless. Humans appeared to have a natural resistance to telepathic influence. Her beauty, which opened doors across the galaxy, earned polite compliments but no special treatment. Her carefully crafted diplomatic strategies, honed over decades, were meeting simple, straightforward resistance. Perhaps we should take a break, Ambassador Sora suggested kindly. This is a lot to process for both our species. Why don't we show you around the station? It might help us all understand each other better. Lyra agreed, grateful for the respite. As they walked through the station, she observed humans going about their daily tasks. They glanced at the Velnari visitors with curiosity but quickly returned to their work. No one stared. No one seemed overwhelmed. In the recreation area, human crew members were engaged in various activities. Some exercised in ways that looked painful. Others played competitive games, shouting and laughing. The chaos and noise were completely unlike the serene meditation chambers of Velnari ships. Your people are very energetic, Hana observed. We like to stay active, Dr. Hyunwoo said with a smile. Life is short. We try to fill it with as much as possible. As they returned to the diplomatic section, Lyra's mind raced. Everything she thought she knew about first contact was wrong. Humans were not reacting the way young species were supposed to react. They were confident, knowledgeable, and completely unwilling to accept a subservient position. She would need to completely rethink her approach, and she had no idea where to start. Ambassador Sora had suggested that the Velnari delegation visit Earth itself to better understand human culture. Lyra agreed, hoping that seeing humanity's homeworld would give her the insight she desperately needed. Nothing about this mission was going as planned, and she felt increasingly out of her depth. Their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere toward the city of Seoul. Lyra watched through the viewport as the landscape transformed below them. Mountains gave way to a sprawling metropolis of steel and glass, teeming with millions of humans going about their daily lives. The shuttle landed on a diplomatic platform atop a towering building. As they disembarked, Lyra was struck by the sheer noise of the city. Vehicles rushed along elevated highways, aircraft buzzed overhead, and the distant hum of millions of voices created a constant background roar. It was so different from Velnari cities, which were designed for peaceful silence. "Welcome to Seoul," Ambassador Sora said, "one of Earth's oldest continuously inhabited cities. Humans have lived here for thousands of years." Over the next week, Lyra and her team were given a comprehensive tour of human civilization. They visited museums, universities, factories, and homes. Each experience challenged what Lyra thought she understood about humanity. At a history museum, Hana stood frozen before a display about Earth's world wars. The death tolls were staggering. Hundreds of millions killed in conflicts that spanned the globe. The Velnari had not experienced warfare on such a scale in over 30,000 years. "How did you survive this?" Hana asked Misun, a human historian assigned as her guide. Misun looked at the display with sad eyes. "We learned," she said simply. "Each war taught us something. Each tragedy made us stronger. We are not proud of our violent history, but we do not hide from it either. It shaped who we are." "But so many died," Hana whispered. "Yes," Misun agreed, "and we remember every one of them. That is why we work so hard for peace now. We know the cost of war." Hana could not understand it. The Velnari had achieved peace by eliminating the causes of conflict through technology and telepathic harmony. Humans had achieved peace through experiencing the horrors of war. Both paths led to the same destination, but the human route seemed so much more painful. Tai Yang was having his own revelations. He had been paired with Jin Ho, a young human soldier, for a tour of a military base. The weapons he saw disturbed him deeply. Humans had not abandoned warfare. They had perfected it. "This missile can destroy an entire city," Jin Ho explained, showing Tai Yang a display. "We have hundreds of them, though we hope to never use them again." "Why keep them if you do not intend to use them?" Tai Yang asked. Jin Ho shrugged. "Deterrence? If everyone knows we can defend ourselves, they are less likely to attack. It is not perfect, but it works." "You have weaponized everything," Ta Yang said, not as an accusation, but as an observation. "Your civilian technology, your spacecraft, even your entertainment contains simulated combat." "That is true," Jin Ho admitted. "We are a warlike species even now, but we channel that aggression into sports, games, competition. We compete instead of fight. It is progress." Tai Yang thought about Velnari society, where competition was considered distasteful and cooperation was the highest virtue. Humans seemed to thrive on competition. They constantly tested themselves against each other, against nature, against their own limitations. It was exhausting just to watch. Meanwhile, Daewon was learning about human innovation from Youngsu, a human engineer. They visited a technology laboratory where humans were developing new propulsion systems. "We know we are behind," Youngsu said cheerfully, "but we are catching up fast. 20 years ago, we barely had a presence in space. Now we have colonies on Mars and mining operations in the asteroid belt. In another 20 years, who knows?" "You advance very quickly," Daewon observed. "But your technology is so inelegant. These engines have dozens of redundant systems." "Redundancy saves lives," Youngsu replied. "If one system fails, another takes over. Velnari technology is beautiful, but what happens when it breaks? Our technology might not be pretty, but it works even when damaged." Daewon had to admit the human had a point. Velnari ships were marvels of efficiency, but they required perfect conditions to function. Human technology was designed to work in imperfect conditions because humans assumed things would go wrong. It was a fundamentally different philosophy. Lyra herself spent time with Ambassador Sora, trying to understand human government. They sat in a cafe overlooking the city, drinking earth beverages that Lyra found surprisingly pleasant. "Your species is so divided," Lyra said, not unkindly. "Over 200 nations, countless factions within each nation, endless debates and disagreements. How do you accomplish anything?" Sora smiled. "With great difficulty," she admitted. "But that diversity is our strength. Every problem has multiple perspectives. Every solution is tested by people who disagree with it. Nothing survives unless it is truly good." "But the Velnari achieve consensus through telepathic harmony," Lyra argued. "Everyone understands everyone else. There are no misunderstandings. And no surprises either, Sora replied gently. Tell me, when was the last time your people had a truly revolutionary idea? Something that changed everything? Lyra thought about it. Velnari technology had been essentially the same for thousands of years, just incrementally improved. Their art, their music, their philosophy had all reached a state of perfect refinement and stayed there. There was no need for revolution when everything was already perfect. We have achieved stability, Lyra said. And we have achieved chaos, Sora countered. But chaos creates new things. Argument produces ideas. Struggle builds strength. Your people are peaceful and advanced, and we admire that. But you have stopped changing. We are still evolving. That evening, Lyra attended a human cultural festival. She expected something refined, like Velnari ceremonies, where everyone moved in perfect harmony. Instead, she found herself in a crowded street filled with music, laughter, and chaos. Food vendors sold items from a dozen different cultures. Musicians played styles that ranged from classical to electronic. People danced without any coordination, just moving however they felt. A small human child, no more than 6 years old, approached Lyra. The child stared up at her with wide eyes. "You are very pretty," the child said, "but you look sad." Lyra blinked in surprise. "I am not sad." "Yes, you are," the child insisted. "You smile, but your eyes are sad. My grandmother looks like that sometimes. She says it is because she misses my grandfather." The child's mother hurried over, apologizing for the interruption. But Lyra knelt down to the child's level. "What do you do when your grandmother is sad?" Lyra asked. "I hug her," the child said simply. "It helps." As the child and mother walked away, Lyra stood in the middle of the festival crowd, surrounded by chaotic humanity, and felt something crack inside her. The child was right. She was sad. She was sad because everything she had believed about herself, about her people, about how the universe worked was being challenged. The Velnari were superior in technology. They were more beautiful. They were more advanced in every measurable way. But humans had something the Velnari had lost long ago. They had passion. They had the ability to feel deeply, to laugh freely, to cry without shame. They embraced their imperfections instead of hiding them. Later that night, in her quarters on the diplomatic ship, Lyra reviewed her mission. She was supposed to bring humanity into the Velnari Empire as a protectorate. But how could she protect a species that did not want protection? How could she guide people who were already finding their own way, perhaps better than the way she would show them? Tai Yang, Hana, and Dai Wan gathered in her chamber. They all looked as troubled as she felt. "I do not understand them," Hana admitted. "They are violent and chaotic, but also kind and creative. They have survived things that should have destroyed them." "Their technology is crude but effective," Daewon added. "They solve problems in ways we would never consider." "They are dangerous," Taeyang said quietly. "Not because they are hostile, but because they are unpredictable. Every rule we know about young species does not apply to them." Lyra nodded. "We cannot guide them. They will not accept it. But perhaps we should not try. Perhaps we should learn from them instead." Her team looked shocked. A Velnari diplomat learning from a primitive species? It was unthinkable. But Lyra was beginning to think that humanity was not primitive at all. They were just different. And maybe different was not worse. Maybe it was just different. The emergency alert woke Lyra from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed throughout the diplomatic ship, and the calm voice of the computer announced a crisis at the joint Human-Velnari research station on the border of explored space. Lyra rushed to the command deck where Captain Jiwoo's face filled the main view screen. He looked grim. "The research station is under attack," he said without preamble. "The Krath swarm, at least 20 ships, maybe more." Lyra felt her blood run cold. The Krath were a known threat throughout the galaxy. They were aggressive, expansionist, and completely hostile to diplomatic contact. The Velnari had fought them before, always with heavy casualties. "We must evacuate the station immediately," Lyra said, her mind already running through Velnari protocols. "Pull everyone back to a safe distance and call for fleet support." "How long until your fleet arrives?" Captain Jiwoo asked. 3 weeks, Lyra admitted. Maybe 2 if they push the engines. The station will be destroyed in hours, not weeks, Captain Jiwoo replied. We are going to fight. Fight? Taeyang stepped forward. Captain, the Krath are extremely dangerous. Our simulations show a 97% chance of failure if we engage with the forces we have available. We must retreat. Retreat means abandoning 63 researchers, Captain Jiwoo said. 32 humans and 31 Velnari. We do not leave people behind. Dying alongside them serves no purpose, Lyra argued, though she felt ashamed saying it. We cannot win this battle. Then we will lose it trying, Captain Jiwoo said flatly. But we are not running away. Human ships are already en route. We will be there in 2 hours. The connection ended before Lyra could respond. She stood in silence, processing what had just happened. Humans were going to attack a superior force to save people they barely knew, including Velnari researchers. It was insane. It was suicide. It was very human. We must go as well, Lyra said quietly. If humans are willing to risk their lives for our people, we cannot do less. Taeyang looked like he wanted to argue but nodded. I will prepare the ship for combat. The Velnari diplomatic vessel was not designed for warfare, but it had defensive capabilities. Within an hour, they were traveling at maximum speed toward the research station. Lyra spent the time reviewing everything known about the Krath. They were formidable enemies who relied on overwhelming numbers and brutal tactics. When they arrived at the research station, the battle had already begun. Krath ships swarmed around the station like angry insects. Their vessels were ugly and asymmetrical, built for pure function without any aesthetic consideration. Human ships were engaging them, darting between the enemy craft like small fish harassing sharks. Their tactics make no sense, Taeyang said, watching the battle unfold. Human ships are using themselves as shields for the station. They are taking damage that could be avoided. They are protecting the researchers, Lyra said, understanding dawning. They value lives over ships. A human destroyer took a direct hit, its hull breaching in multiple places. Lyra expected it to withdraw, but instead it accelerated toward a cluster of Krath vessels, firing all weapons. The tactic was so aggressive, so unexpected, that the Krath formation broke apart in confusion. Commander Byung-hoon's voice came over the communication channel. All ships, execute pattern Delta 7. Velnari vessel, we need you to extend your shields around the station's docking port. We are evacuating the researchers now. Lyra gave the order and their ship moved into position. The Velnari shields were stronger than human ones, and they enveloped the docking area just as escape pods began launching from the station. Then everything went wrong. A Krath heavy cruiser broke through the human defensive line and fired on the Velnari ship. The shields held, but the ship's engines were damaged. They were dead in space. Shields failing, Taeyang reported. We need to evacuate. Not yet, Lyra said. The researchers are not all out. Through the viewport, she could see the last escape pods launching. Most were reaching the safety of human ships, but 3 were damaged and drifting. Without thinking, Lyra ordered the ship to extend what remained of their shields to cover the pods. A human repair shuttle appeared, piloted by Young-soo and 2 other engineers. They ignored the battle raging around them, focusing entirely on reaching the Velnari ship. We are coming to get you out, Young-soo's voice crackled over the radio. Hang tight. This is suicide, Hana said, watching the shuttle approach. They will be killed. But the shuttle reached them, and the engineers began working on the damaged docking port. Lyra could hear them through the hull, joking and laughing even as weapons fire streaked past them. One engineer was hit by debris and floated away, unconscious or dead. The other 2 kept working. We need to help them, Lyra said. She and Taeyang suited up and exited the ship through an emergency airlock. They retrieved the injured engineer and helped complete the repairs. It took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Finally, the docking port was functional. The Velnari crew evacuated to the human shuttle. As they pulled away, Lyra watched her beautiful ship take another hit and begin to break apart. Inside the shuttle, Young-soo was still smiling despite a nasty cut on his forehead. Everyone okay? He asked. The engineer who was hit, Lyra said. Is he alive? Young-Soo's smile faded. That was Dong Hyun. He did not make it. But he saved the rest of you. He would say that was a good trade. Lyra felt something break inside her. This human, whose name she had not even known, had died to save Velnari lives. He had sacrificed himself for aliens he had known for only a few weeks. The battle continued for another hour. Human tactics were chaotic and unpredictable. They used their own ships as decoys, created false retreat patterns that lured Krath vessels into traps, and employed strategies that violated every rule of tactical engagement Lyra had ever learned. And somehow, impossibly, they won. The Krath, confused and frustrated by opponents who refused to behave rationally, withdrew. The research station was damaged but intact. All 63 researchers survived, though several human ships had been destroyed. In the aftermath, Lyra stood in the docking bay of a human cruiser, watching medics treat the wounded. Velnari and human crew members worked side by side, helping each other without hesitation. The barriers between species seemed to have vanished in the heat of battle. Ambassador Sora found her there. The ambassador looked tired but relieved. You risked your ship to protect the researchers, Sora said. That was very brave. Young-Soo and Dong-Hyun risked far more, Lyra replied. Dong-Hyun gave his life. I do not understand why. Because it was the right thing to do, Sora said simply. We protect each other. That is what partners do. That word again. Partners. Not subjects. Not protectorates. Partners. Your people fought when my protocols said to retreat, Lyra said. You won when my simulations said you would fail. Everything I know about warfare, about tactics, about rational decision-making says you should have lost. We are not always rational, Sora admitted. Sometimes we succeed in spite of logic, not because of it. We are stubborn. We do not accept defeat easily. 2 days later, Lyra attended the memorial service for Dong Hyun and the other humans who had died in the battle. She had attended Velnari memorial services before. They were quiet, dignified affairs where the deceased were honored with poetry and meditation. The human service was different. People cried openly. They told stories about the deceased, stories that were sometimes funny, sometimes sad. They expressed anger at the unfairness of death. They showed every emotion without shame or restraint. Meeson sat beside Lyra and took her hand when she saw tears running down Lyra's luminescent cheeks. Lyra had not even realized she was crying. Velnari did not cry like this, with raw grief and pain. They maintained composure even in sorrow. It is okay to be sad, Meeson said gently. You do not have to be perfect all the time. None of us are. And for the first time in her life, Lyra truly understood. Perfection was not strength. Perfection was a cage that prevented growth, prevented change, prevented real feeling. Humans were messy and emotional and chaotic, but they were also genuine in a way the Velnari had forgotten how to be. She cried for Dong Hyun, whom she had barely known. She cried for her own people, who had achieved peace by sacrificing passion. And she cried for herself, for the diplomat who had come to guide a primitive species and found herself being taught instead. 6 months had passed since Lyra first arrived at Earth. 6 months since she had expected humanity to eagerly accept Velnari guidance. 6 months since everything she thought she knew had been challenged and changed. Now she stood before the Velnari High Council once again, but this time via holographic transmission from Earth. The council members looked displeased. The first speaker's expression was stern. Diplomat Velnash, the first speaker said coldly, you have failed your mission. The humans have not signed the accession protocols. They have not agreed to become a protectorate. They have rejected every offer of guidance we extended through you. That is correct, Lyra said calmly, because the accession protocols are the wrong approach for humanity. Shocked silence filled the council chamber. A diplomat had never contradicted the council so directly before. Explain yourself, the first speaker demanded. Humanity is unlike any species we have encountered, Lyra began. They are young, yes. Their technology is less advanced than ours, yes. But they possess qualities we have lost. They are resilient, adaptive, and creative in ways we cannot match. They do not need our guidance. They need our partnership. Partnership implies equality, another council member said. How can a species barely capable of interstellar travel be equal to the Velnari Empire? Because equality is not about technological advancement, Lyra replied. It is about mutual respect and shared purpose. Humans have survived multiple near-extinction events. They have overcome challenges that would have destroyed most civilizations. They have learned to work together despite being divided into hundreds of nations and cultures. They are strong precisely because they are imperfect. Before the council could respond, another holographic image appeared in the chamber. Thalos, Lyra's superior, and one of the Empire's most skilled diplomats, materialized beside her. The council has sent me to take over negotiations, Thalos announced. Clearly, diplomat Velnash has been compromised by excessive exposure to human culture. I will correct these failures. Lyra felt a flash of anger, but kept her voice level. With respect, sir, if you use the same methods I initially employed, you will achieve the same results. Nothing. Thalos smiled condescendingly. I have successfully negotiated with over 40 species. I know what I am doing. Lyra watched over the next week as Tylos attempted to impress humanity with Velnari's superiority. He arrived on Earth in the most magnificent ship in the fleet. He dressed in robes that cost more than most human cities. He brought gifts of technology so advanced they seemed like magic. Captain Jiwoo, Dr. Hyunwoo, and Ambassador Sora received him politely. They thanked him for the gifts. They admired his ship. And then they politely declined to sign the accession protocols. Thalos was baffled. He increased his telepathic influence to maximum levels. Humans noticed but were not affected. He offered even more generous terms, promising to share knowledge that would advance human civilization by centuries. We appreciate the offer, Ambassador Sora said patiently. But we prefer to develop at our own pace. We make mistakes, yes, but we learn from them. That learning is valuable. You would refuse advancement because of pride? Thalos asked incredulously. Not pride, Captain Jiwoo interjected. Self-determination. We have fought too hard for independence to surrender it now, even for good reasons. After 2 weeks of failed negotiations, Thalos was furious. He contacted the council and demanded they send a fleet to demonstrate Velnari power. The council was seriously considering it. That was when Lyra acted. She requested an emergency session with the council, and this time she brought witnesses. Captain Jiwoo, Ambassador Sora, Dr. Hunwoo, and several other humans joined the holographic conference. Honored Council, Lyra said. I have spent 6 months with humanity. I have seen them fight when logic said they should retreat. I have seen them sacrifice themselves for strangers. I have seen them survive and thrive despite challenges that would have destroyed us. And I have learned something important. She took a deep breath. We are not superior to them. We are different. And in some ways, they are superior to us. The council chamber erupted in shocked protests. Lyra continued speaking over them. When was the last time we innovated? When was the last time we created something truly new? When was the last time we felt genuine passion or took a real risk? We have achieved perfection, but perfection is stagnation. Humans are still growing, still changing, still evolving. They will surpass us eventually because they are willing to fail, willing to struggle, willing to be imperfect. This is absurd, Thalos said. You have been seduced by their chaos. No, Lyra replied. I have been awakened by their authenticity. Ambassador Sora stepped forward. May I speak to the council? The first speaker nodded, curious despite her displeasure. The Velnari are extraordinary, Sora said. Your technology is beautiful, your culture is refined, your people are graceful and wise. But you look at us and see children who need guidance. We look at you and see partners who can teach us much while also learning from us. Why can we not have both? Why can we not share knowledge as equals? Because you are not equals, a council member said bluntly. Then we will become equals, Captain Jiwoo said. Given time and partnership, we will reach your level of technology. Perhaps in a century, perhaps in 10 centuries, but we will get there. The question is whether we make that journey as friends or as species who missed an opportunity. Dr. Hyun-woo added, "You have achieved stability and peace. Those are admirable. But we have achieved diversity and adaptability. Those are valuable too. Imagine what we could accomplish together, combining your wisdom with our innovation, your refinement with our creativity." The council debated for hours. Lyra watched as the council members argued, their telepathic communications buzzing beneath their spoken words. Finally, the first speaker raised her hand for silence. "Diplomat Velnash," she said, "you propose an equal alliance with humanity, something we have never done before. Why should we believe this is wise?" Lyra thought about everything she had experienced, the chaos of human cities, the passion of their art, the bravery of Young-soo and Dong-hyun, the simple wisdom of a child who told her she looked sad, the laughter and tears and imperfect beauty of humanity. "Because," Lyra said softly, "they have reminded me what it means to be alive. We Velnari have achieved everything we set out to achieve. We have perfect peace, perfect technology, perfect harmony. But in achieving perfection, we stopped growing. Humans are still growing. And if we partner with them, perhaps we can start growing again too." The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then, slowly, the first speaker nodded. "We will draft a new treaty," she said, "one of equals. But know this, Diplomat Velnash, you are responsible for its success or failure." "I understand," Lyra said, "and I accept that responsibility." The Treaty of Equals took 3 months to negotiate. It established embassies on both Earth and the Velnari homeworld. It created joint research projects and cultural exchange programs. It set up defensive alliances and trade agreements. And most importantly, it recognized both species as partners with equal say in their shared future. The signing ceremony was held on Horizon's Gate Station, where Lyra had first met humanity. Representatives from both species gathered to witness history being made. As Lyra and the first speaker signed for the Velnari, and Ambassador Sora and Earth's Unified Council signed for humanity, Lyra felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. Not the quiet contentment that Velnari called happiness, but real burning hope for the future. After the ceremony, Captain Jiwoo invited Lyra and her team to a celebration dinner. It was informal, nothing like the grand banquets of Velnari culture. Humans and Velnari sat together at long tables, sharing food and stories. Tai Yong was deep in conversation with Jin Ho about military tactics. Hana and Mi-sun were laughing about a cultural misunderstanding from their first meeting. Daewon and Young-soo were sketching out plans for a joint engineering project on a napkin. "This is not what I expected," Lyra admitted to Ambassador Sora. "What did you expect?" Sora asked. "I expected to arrive, demonstrate our superiority, and guide you into our empire. I expected it to be easy." Sora smiled. "And instead?" "Instead, I found a species that challenged everything I believed. You made first contact harder than I expected, but you also made it more worthwhile." "The best things in life are rarely easy," Sora said. "If it had been easy, would it have mattered as much?" Lyra thought about that. If humans had simply accepted Velnari guidance, if they had been overwhelmed by beauty and technology, if they had submitted without question, what would have been gained? A new protectorate, a young species safely controlled and guided. But because humans had resisted, because they had demanded equality, because they had forced Lyra to see them as partners rather than subjects, something far more valuable had been created. A true alliance between different species who respected each other. 5 years later, Lyra still served as the Velnari ambassador to Earth. She had moved permanently to the planet, finding that she preferred the chaos and passion of human culture to the serene perfection of her homeworld. The Human-Velnari alliance had become one of the most dynamic forces in the galaxy. Together, they had established new colonies, developed revolutionary technologies, and even defended smaller species from threats like the Krath. Other civilizations were baffled by their success. How could such different species work so effectively together? The answer was simple but profound. They had learned to value their differences rather than trying to eliminate them. On a warm spring day in Seoul, Lyra walked through a park with Captain Jiwoo, Dr. Hunwoo, and Ambassador Sora. They were not discussing treaties or technology. They were simply enjoying the afternoon, talking about nothing important. Children played nearby, both human and Velnari younglings, learning each other's games and languages. It was chaotic and loud and imperfect and beautiful. "Do you miss your old life?" Captain Jiwoo asked Lyra. "When everything was orderly and predictable?" Lyra watched a human child teach a Velnari youngling how to kick a ball. The youngling was terrible at it, but both children were laughing. "Sometimes," Lyra admitted, "but I would not trade this for anything. You humans taught me that perfection is not the goal. Growth is. Connection is. Life is." She smiled, and for the first time in her long life, her smile reached all the way to her eyes. She was not perfect anymore. She was flawed and uncertain and constantly challenged by these strange, wonderful humans. And she had never been happier.